Sweet Baby Inc. employees engaged in a misinformation campaign in order to try and gaslight gamers into how much influence they have over the video games that they work in. Unfortunately, they've been quickly exposed by comments that their own company and their boss has made. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. This is over at thatparkplace.com. And we're going to get into what these Sweet Baby Inc. employees had to say. First off, we have this Maya Kramer, who goes by Lego Butts on X. She engaged in this kind of misinformation campaign at the end of February as part of this lengthy thread that she wrote where she was also trying to cancel Cabrutus Rambo, who created that Steam curator list listing off all of the Steam games that Sweet Baby Inc. has worked on, and very emphatically telling people that he does not recommend those games. I think it's a boycott list. Some people disagree with that, but I think for all intents and purposes, it is indeed a boycott list of all the games that Sweet Baby Inc. has worked on. But anyways, this is what Lego Butts had to say as part of that thread. These people think a company of narrative designers that freelances on projects has somehow single-handedly caused the employment collapse in games. Instead of, the insane notion of infinite growth or capitalist greed, it's easier to blame diversity than that somehow. I still think it's way more likely that they know that's not the case and are just fine with looking stupid, so long as it justifies them being loudly anti-woke, whatever that means. The other part of this is it doesn't matter if you tell them the truth. They think DI just steps in and changes whole games, that creators are forced by some unseen hand, the government, BlackRock, I guess, as well as just POC in general, to make games more inclusive. Fighting misinformation would be great, but social media plus YouTube is not equipped to hold people accountable to doing real research in good faith, just getting hits and proving their point in the absence of confirmation. It's wild out there. Nothing has changed. Nothing. So really gaslighting here, trying to accuse people of exposing Sweet Baby Inc. of the ones who are spreading misinformation. Well, that's exactly what this Maya Kramer person is doing. And then she says this here: sorry, no one thing has changed. The number of people who understand that spreading misinformation just lets them be racist in public with no consequence has increased dramatically. That has changed. Probably requires some fighting from those with authority. Probably. So obviously wanting the hammer from the authorities, censorship. Clearly talking about trying to censor Cabrutus there, and then anyone else deeming not buying into her misinformation. And it wasn't just Lego Butts. We had Chris Kindred, who also works for Sweet Baby Inc., posted this on Blue Sky after her account on X was limited for attempting to false flag Cabrutus. But Kindred wrote this: trolling their forums and chats and realizing that they don't care about Sweet Baby at all. Sweet Baby is just the most visible and the most vulnerable. They think we're some super firm funded by BlackRock receiving ESG funding and tasked by some entity to hold studios hostage. They don't know how many of us there are, so they make it up. They don't know what we do, so they make it up. They don't know the impact of our work has on the studios that hire us, so they make it up. And when they have that many open spaces to play in, they can create their own boogeymen. They think we're actively making games worse when studios are the ones making the choices they balk at. The nature of our work is often at the end and is often just looking at things. So clearly saying that what they do is after everything has already been done. We'll get to that when we get to what Kim Belair has to say. As a unit, we have no power toward any of the clients we work with. They're mad at market conditions. They're mad at studio decisions. They're mad at the world changing away from their fascist beliefs. They just need is a punching bag because they know AAA studios will sue them into the earth. It's really interesting, right? We had Maya Kramer describing people criticizing them as racists, and now Chris Kindred is calling people criticizing them fascists. It's almost like these people are the ones that are guilty of the things they're accusing others of, right? And they're always trying to use these names to try and hammer their opponents. And then she went on and said they think they're doing activism by targeting smaller, more visible organizations in hopes that AAA studios will get scared. They don't know. They don't have an end goal, just unmitigated vitriol. So let's get into how this is clearly a misinformation campaign by these multiple employees. We have this from Kim Belair back in 2019. at the Game Developers Conference, and she revealed just how her company and others like it manipulate and control video game studios. She says, if you're in development and you are part of like that dominant voice, you're like a cis hetero white dude, obviously using pejoratives there and slurs, disgusting behavior from her. Again, these are the ones that are accusing you of being racist. They're actually the racists, right? Or just adjacent to that, do not wait until the end to call your consultants. So what did Chris Kindred say? They only do things at the end. Well, here's Kim Belair in 2019 saying, get us in at the very beginning so we can shape your entire narrative. Bring them in at the beginning. And instead of asking them, hey, is this very racist thing we did very racist? Or is this deeply offensive thing offensive? Are you hurt by it? Ask them what they want to see. Ask them what would thrill them, what would bring them joy. And if you have a team lead, put that request to them very, very early. So she literally is saying, we want to get in there early to shape the entire narrative of the game. That's what she said in 2019, basically just refuting Chris Kindred's comments about them only doing things at the end of games, blowing that narrative completely out of the water. And then we have this from Kim Belair too. If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher ups. And if they don't see the value and what you're asking for, when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want. So she's now weaponizing terror and fear against the video game studios to push her agenda that she wants to push, which is she wants to basically just push her race politics into these video games, which I've talked about in another video. She goes on and says, because they have to consider, I say that out loud as a joke, but it's actually very, very true, because if you start to consider, like, so she's literally like, she's like, oh, I say it as a joke, but it's actually true. You should terrorize these people. If you start to consider the people who are player and audience facing, and you have to deal with mitigating harm and with keeping the sentiment around their game and their project positive, there's like a genuine value that you can impress upon them both ethically and financially. You could say this is important. So it's basically what she's saying. This is 2019, remember. I'm going to weaponize my woke mob on social media to attack you if you do not do this stuff. And you need to tell your higher ups that we will weaponize these woke mobs to destroy you and your game. Well, joke's on them. They brought in these people and they destroyed their entire studios, not just their games. So clearly, she's telling them how they have massive influence. They use fear. They want to terrorize people. That is what Kim Belair was saying in 2019 and saying that's how she does it. She went on to elaborate. It's also a valid discussion to have, because if you're working with a thin narrative budget and you work in AAA, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised or dismayed by the amount of money that marketing can give you. So she's also saying here that the studios are just like going to drop a ton of money on these consultants. So obviously she's trying to enrich herself as well with all of this stuff, right? So not only did Belair state all the way back in 2019, all of that stuff back in 2019, but we have Alan Wake 2 game director Kyle Rowley appearing to credit Belair and Sweet Baby Inc. for race swapping Saga Anderson in that game. So game developers Alessandro Filari reported in November 2023, this is what he said or wrote. For creating Saga Anderson, the developers at Remedy took a different approach compared to the process behind other hero characters, resulting in a more organic creative collaboration across different disciplines at Remedy Entertainment and outside parties. Along with working with story and narrative consultant Kim Belair of Sweet Baby Inc. to refine the character voice and story arc, the key creatives of Alan Wake 2 also worked extensively with the actress playing Saga Anderson, Melanie Libbard, who offered suggestions and other insights that led to the Saga Anderson scene in the final game. So this is Alessandro Filari, obviously a game journo, filleting the game, but does admit here that Kim Belair was brought in to, quote, refine the character voice and the story arc of the character. So to me, that is significant influence over Alan Wake 2 as a consultant. Rowley then specifically told a game developer, I think that it took us a long time to find Saga. It was an interesting process. We had an idea in our head on what that character could be, but then as the character evolves over time, being open to changing her based on input from the actors and from external sources really opened things up for us. Obviously, those external sources, Sweet Baby Inc. is clearly one of them, right? I think that's important for us as a studio to be okay with because we don't do it very often for our characters. This idea of how to create a new hero character. So it is kind of a big moment for us. And it was definitely interesting for me going through that process. If you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about here, Saga Anderson was originally introduced as an Easter egg in Remedy's 2016 Quantum Break game. She was portrayed by Finnish actress singer Mala Malmavara. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Alan Wake 2's creative director Sam Lake even revealed the character in 2015, sharing on Twitter. FBI agents Saga Anderson and Alex Casey hard at work. You can see right there a white woman is playing Saga Anderson. Very clear there. And then he went on to confirm that Malmavara was the actress playing Saga Anderson. This is what he wrote. The missing writer played by Ika Villi, the FBI agent Saga Anderson played by Mala Malmavara. So we did get this, though, from Rally. He's obviously responding to a lot of the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff here because he posted this on March 4th, obviously trying to defend the company, defend his game's integrity. So I think his comments here are suspect at best. But he said this in response to a post from Hidden Machine, who says the prevailing theory is that if it weren't Sweet Baby, Saga Anderson would have been portrayed by a white woman. Is that true? Well, it's impossible to say, but doesn't matter. Melanie Libbert did a great job in the role. And then Kyle Rowley obviously responding to the part that Sweet Baby, they wouldn't have race swapped if it wasn't for Sweet Baby. And he says it's absolutely not true. I mean, obviously, I just said that his comments are suspect, and I do believe that, but I think he might be probably telling the truth because we know that these game companies do want to push this agenda as well. And we know that they are indeed influenced by the government, which is funding a lot of this stuff, and then also by a lot of stock incentives and things like that with ESG money. You can look at massive game companies such as Embracer Group. They literally have ESG on their website, talking about all their ESG initiatives that they are doing in order to try and get that money. You can look at film studios, the Walt Disney Company. Who do you think is licensing out all these Star Wars games? Lucasfilm, the Walt Disney Company. They have an entire program called Reimagine Tomorrow with very with quotas and all of this stuff when it comes to casting, when it comes to the people that are working behind the camera. You don't think that that's all there when they make their video games as well. This stuff is industry wide and it's part of all of these institutions. And again, it is coming from the federal government as well. So this stuff is indeed happening. And obviously Sweet Baby is part of it, but they're just one part of it. And they're obviously capitalizing on it. But they are trying to push this agenda too. It's very clear. You read their website, that's exactly what they're trying to do. Now, whether or not they were specifically involved in race swapping Saga Anderson, we don't know. We're not in that room. Kyle Rowley says that they weren't, but who's to say? Who's to say? Because again, he's posting this on March 4 after all of the Sweet Baby Inc. is happening. Nevertheless, we also have this. How influential were they? Well, Kim Belair posted this on X. She'd been working on Marvel's Spider-Man 2 since 2020. So clearly they were just coming in at the very end of the game, right? A game that came out in 2023. They just came in at the end of the game. She's been working on it since 2020. You cannot tell me that they just came in at the end and they don't have any influence of what's happening on the story. No, it's not true. This is what she wrote. Working on this story since 2020 has been one of the greatest joys of my career, and I mean that. The team at Insomniac Games could not have been more gracious, more inviting, more genuinely collaborative. I'm so grateful for the space they made for me and for Sweet Baby. So again, their own comments blow up the narrative that their employees were trying to spin. And it's no wonder these games' narratives are so absolutely atrocious. This company that's supposed to be a narrative consultant company can't even do misinformation right because they can't get their facts correct by their own employees. It's pathetic if you think about that. Incompetence, right? Well, that's what you expect when you're pretty much relying on quota and agenda. And then we also have this here too from their most recent game they worked on, Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. So in the game's credits, we have Amy Shaw, who is listed as a junior scriptwriter and script coordinator. Her LinkedIn profile indicates she worked for Rocksteady from March 2020 to November 2021 as a script coordinator, and from November 2021 to October 2022 as a junior writer. And then in October 2022, she joined Sweet Baby Inc. The credits also list Grant Roberts as the lead scriptwriter. Roberts' LinkedIn states he was the lead writer at Rocksteady from February 2019 to June 2021, where he, quote, managed a team of diverse and talented writers on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. He joined Sweet Baby Inc. in July 2023. That game came out just this year. It's unclear whether or not they were working for Sweet Baby Inc. and immediately after they left Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, or what they were involved in. But clearly, two people that are credited as like the main writers on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League now work for Sweet Baby Inc., which to me indicates that Sweet Baby Inc. had massive influence over the story of the game. And they did, because look here, 13 of their employees are credited in the credits of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. They include Kim Belair, David Bedard, Sean Hennigan, Will Herring, Cameron Wild, Lee Yose, Chris Kindred, Paula Rogers, Maxine Sophia Wolf, Amber Lee Blake, Danny Lalanders, Louisa Addo, and Ariadne McGilvray. I'm probably butchered your name. I'm sorry. But they're all credited right here in the game. 13 people credited. You don't think that 13 people had influence over how atrocious that game was and the story that it told? I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. So I think it's very clear that Sweet Baby Inc. has significant influence over these major studios. Belair admits to employing her fear tactics, in order to get studios to work with them. She also admits to working with them at the very beginning to influence the entire narrative story. We have evidence of that with Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I think the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League credits also indicate that too, because their main story writers on the game joined Sweet Baby Inc. immediately after. And then you have 13 writers from Sweet Baby Inc. credited in the credits for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And then it also appears that they were involved in the race swapping of Saga Anderson in Alan Wake 2, although it's not clear as to what extent. They clearly were involved and were heavily involved with the character's arc, according to the game developer. So this company is heavily involved in what these video game studios are doing. And the gaslighting campaign that Maya Kramer and Chris Kindred were trying to push is just easily exposed with a bit of research right here. So let me know what you guys make of all this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.